At 2 a.m. in Shanghai, the city isn't loud in an explosive way. It's more dangerous than that. It operates in a half-awake, half-quiet state, where everything is still happening, but no longer for people who are just out for fun. If you walk into this city at 9 p.m., you'll see the lights, the rooftops, the clubs, the streets glowing as if rest doesn't exist. But by 2 a.m., everything begins to shift. Not stopping, just filtering. The people who remain are not new, not tourists, not first-timers. They are the ones who are used to this rhythm, who understand how it works, and most importantly, who no longer expect this place to give them anything unexpected. They stay because they belong to it, or because they are not ready to leave it. And among them, the image of Shanghai girls is no longer what it was a few hours earlier. No freshness, no obvious display, but a very different state. Alert inside a game where everyone pretends to be effortless. Nightlife for Shanghai girls at 2 a.m. is no longer about enjoyment. It's about maintenance. You won't see loud laughter, constant movement, or obvious attempts to get attention. But don't mistake that. They haven't left the game. They've just changed how they play. Less, but more precise. Slower, but more intentional. And that's what makes the space feel tense in a way that's hard to notice if you're not paying attention. More bluntly, in Shanghai, the later it gets, the less real things become in the way you might think. Not because people are more fake, but because everyone is controlling themselves more. You can't lose control here. You can't react purely on emotion. You can't step outside the image you've built. And when everyone is holding a controlled version of themselves, what we call natural almost disappears. One thing is very clear. No one stays at 2 a.m. without a reason. But that reason is rarely, "I'm having a great time." It's usually, "I'm not ready to stop. I need to stay a bit longer," or simply, "I don't want to go back to a space that's too quiet." And that creates a very clear paradox in Shanghai. Nightlife doesn't keep you with pleasure. It keeps you with the fear of emptiness when you leave. Shanghai girls understand that very well. They don't need to say it. They just adjust their behavior to fit it. They don't stay because they have no options, but because the other options aren't attractive enough to make them leave. A quiet apartment can't compete with a space where everything is still moving. An ordinary evening can't compare to a place where you are always seen, always surrounded, always feel like you are in it. But the problem is, that feeling doesn't last. It only exists while you are there. And the moment you leave, it disappears quickly. And so you come back. Not because it's that good, but because you don't want to feel the absence of it. This is the point where nightlife stops being a choice and becomes a reflex. You don't need a strong reason to continue. You just need no strong reason to stop. And when you operate like that long enough, you stop questioning. You don't ask what you're doing, whether you still enjoy it, or whether you could live differently. You just continue. One very noticeable thing in Shanghai is that the social grouping isn't loud like in other places, but it's much tighter. You don't see big, attention-grabbing groups. You see small, closed, very stable circles. Everyone in them has a position. No one says it out loud, but everyone knows. And if you don't understand your position, you'll be pushed out automatically, without anyone needing to directly exclude you. Because of that, the later it gets, the less random interaction there is. The girls don't talk to everyone. They don't expand connections carelessly. They choose. Who is worth talking to, who isn't? Which conversation continues, which one ends? And this makes the space quieter, but much more tense. As it gets closer to 3 a.m., the pauses start to appear more often. Not complete silence, but moments between actions, when no one really wants to start a new conversation, but no one is ready to leave either. This is when you begin to see clearly. Not everyone there is enjoying themselves, but many people still continue. And the most important thing is, they know. They know everything is repeating. They know nothing is truly new. They know the feeling will disappear the moment they leave. But they stay anyway, not because they don't realize it, but because they don't want to face what comes after. That feeling when you leave everything, when no one is around, when there's no sound, no lights, just you and the silence. In Shanghai, the scariest part isn't nightlife. It's the moment after it ends. And because of that fear, many people stay longer than they should, then come back sooner than they expect. Night after night. No climax needed, no big reason required, just the rhythm. And once you get used to that rhythm, you're no longer sure whether you can stop. In Shanghai, no one is just having fun. Everyone is maintaining an image. At 2 a.m. in Shanghai, things aren't slowing down. They're becoming clearer. The surface level fun is gone. The experimental energy is gone. The people who were just there to see what it's like are gone. What remains are the ones who understand the system. And within that system, there is no room for randomness. Everything has a place. Everyone has a role. And most importantly, every girl present in nightlife at this hour understands that she's not just there. She's maintaining a version of herself in front of others. Nightlife in Shanghai isn't entertainment. It's real-time image management. It may sound extreme, but if you observe long enough, you'll see it more clearly than anything else. No one is ever fully relaxed. No one lets themselves cross the line. No one allows their image to break. Even when they're laughing, talking, moving, everything exists within a controlled range. And this isn't random. It comes from understanding that a single misstep can change how you're perceived instantly. More bluntly, the longer you stay in Shanghai nightlife, the less you're allowed to be yourself. You can't act on impulse. You can't react purely on real emotion. You can't visibly not be okay. You have to be okay, or at least look like you are. And when you have to maintain that state for hours, across multiple nights, what we call going out stops being relaxation. It becomes a form of psychological labor that no one pays you for. One very clear pattern is this. Social grouping in Shanghai isn't loud, but it's extremely selective. You don't see chaotic large groups. You see small, closed, stable circles. Everyone in those circles understands their role. No need to say it. No need to explain it. And if you don't fit, you won't be kicked out. You prosta won't be invited back. This is a very quiet form of exclusion. No drama, no conflict. You just disappear from the system. And what's important is that many people don't realize it until it's already happened. That's why girls in Shanghai nightlife don't just participate, they constantly adjust. They adjust how they speak, how they react, how they maintain distance. They read the room, read people, read situations. And all of it happens almost automatically. Not because they're trying too hard, but because they're used to it. But being used to it doesn't mean being comfortable. The more used to it you are, the less you notice how much you're actually controlling yourself. You don't feel obviously tired, but you don't feel light either. You just continue. A controversial but very real point is this. Many girls in Shanghai are no longer looking for new excitement in nightlife. They're just maintaining what they already have. They don't need new people, new experiences, or new surprises. They just need things to happen the way they're supposed to. When everything aligns, they stay. When something feels off, they leave. This is not a party. This is a highly stable operating system. And in that system, you don't need to stand out the most. You just need to not be wrong. But that's exactly what creates the loop. When you do the same thing enough times, you lose the sense of novelty. Conversations start to feel the same. Faces become familiar. Situations repeat with only minor variations. And when you realize that, you have two choices: stop, or continue as if you didn't notice. The harsh truth is, most continue. Not because they enjoy it, but because they don't want to lose the image they've built. In Shanghai, image isn't something you have, it's something you constantly maintain. And if you stop maintaining it, it disappears quickly. No one holds it for you. No one reminds you to come back. The system waits for no one. And so you return. Not because you want to relive last night, but because you don't want to no longer be there. At this point, socializing no longer creates real connection. It creates strategic connection. You stay in touch because you need to. You interact because it has value. You show up because you have to. And when everything works like that, you can be highly connected on the surface, but deeply disconnected inside. You know many people, but you're not truly close to anyone. You're in the game, but you're not sure you belong to it. As it gets closer to 3 a.m., everything slows down, but it doesn't get lighter. It becomes heavier in a way that's hard to explain. Fewer actions, but each one carries more meaning. Fewer words, but each one requires more thought. And in that slowness, one thing becomes clear. Not everyone there is enjoying themselves, but almost everyone is maintaining an image. And maintaining an image over time is not light. But they keep doing it, night after night. Not because they don't know, but because they don't want to lose what they've built. And once you get used to always maintaining a correct version of yourself, you forget what it feels like to simply be yourself. After 2 a.m. in Shanghai, what remains is not the party. Around 4 a.m. in Shanghai, the city no longer feels like what you experienced just a few hours earlier. Not because it shuts down, but because it no longer needs to hide anything. The lights are still on, but no longer strong enough to make things look worth it. The music has almost disappeared, leaving only scattered sounds. The streets grow emptier, and spaces that were once crowded are now reduced to a few isolated movements. And in that thinning atmosphere, everything about the nightlife, the socializing, the grouping, the image maintenance, begins to reveal its most honest form. Not what happened, but what's left after it's over. You may have been surrounded by people, noise, and constant interaction. You held your image, your position, your rhythm. But when everything stops, nothing is clear enough to take with you. No moment is deep enough to remember. No conversation is real enough to keep. Everything happened, but nothing left to trace. And this is what many people don't want to admit. You just went through a night full of things, but ended with emptiness. Not sadness, not disappointment, just emptiness. A state not strong enough to name, but clear enough to feel. And the more times you go through it, the more you realize the problem isn't any single night, it's the repetition of it. No one posts this part. No one talks about the moment when everything ends and you're left facing yourself with nothing to cover it. No music, no people, no lights, just you and silence. More bluntly, many girls in Shanghai nightlife understand this feeling, but they don't stop. Not because they don't recognize it, but because they don't know what to replace it with. When you get used to always having a space where you're seen, where you have a position, where there's a rhythm, leaving it doesn't feel like rest. It feels like losing a part of your sense of existing. And when you lose that feeling, daytime starts to feel too slow, too quiet, too lacking in stimulation. And so you go back, not because you miss a specific night, not because you had an amazing experience, but because you don't want that emptiness to last. This is the point where nightlife stops being a choice. It becomes a reflex of avoidance. You go back so you don't feel the lack. You continue so you don't have to stop. You maintain the rhythm so you don't have to face yourself. But the problem is, each time you return, the feeling is slightly weaker. It's still there, but not as strong as the first time. And because it's weaker, you need more. More nights, more interactions, more movement to reach the same level of feeling. And when you need more to feel the same, you've entered a loop that's very hard to escape. One thing becomes very clear if you watch long enough. You stop remembering individual nights. Everything starts to blur together. No clear differences, no highlights, no special moments. Just a continuous stream of experiences you pass through without truly being in them. And when you're no longer in the experience, you're just consuming it, not living, but repeating. As morning approaches, everything becomes real in a way you can't avoid. No more roles, no more image, nothing left to maintain. But what's important is this: even when there's nothing left to hold, you don't feel lighter, because you've gotten used to always holding something. And when you let go, you don't know what to do with yourself. This is when many people begin to realize something clearly. They're not tired from activity. They're tired from maintaining a state for hours. You have to be at the right time, the right way, the right position, the right image. And when it all ends, there is no clear reward, only silence. And that silence is not comfortable. But instead of stopping, most people continue. Because stopping isn't just about not going out anymore. Stopping means losing the rhythm, losing the system, losing the sense that you are part of a flow. And when you lose that flow, you have to create